Wolverine. Bone claws. Chic. Quick story about one of my closest friends. He's an IT guy and he runs the computer systems for a company and he knows a lot about computers. And he assumed that the protections that he had put in place for himself would be enough, but he still got his identity stolen. Pride before the fall. He ended up losing a ton of money and it took him months to get things put back in order. And after that happened, he started using NordVPN. And so did I. So when NordVPN came to me about a sponsorship, I absolutely accepted because I was already familiar with the company and knew how great it was. If you Google it yourself, you'll find that NordVPN is one of the best VPNs on every single list on the internet. And there's a reason for that. It's because there's so many benefits, it's so easy to use, and it's so inexpensive. And right now, if you use the link that they gave me in the description, nordvpn.com/JAIRUS, you get 3 years of coverage for $99. That's 77% off. And to put into perspective how inexpensive that is, if my buddy had used NordVPN for the rest of his life, he still wouldn't have spent as much money as he lost when his identity got stolen. You probably have insurance on almost everything you own and you have locks on your car and locks on your doors. Why wouldn't you put some kind of extra protection on your computer? Nord gives you peace of mind that you're not going to lose your information to somebody on the internet. And everybody knows net neutrality just got repealed. And you know what that means. Here's your internet right now. You can get lots of information through there, but once they start to throttle, you don't get very much. And with NordVPN and all the wizardry that happens that I don't understand, that won't happen to you. So if you want to support my channel, keep your information, and protect your internet speed, use the link in the description, nordvpn.com/JAIRUS. It's only $99 for 3 years of peace of mind. Keep your internet, not lose all your money. Make the decision that my friend should have made before he lost thousands and thousands of dollars. Now onto the build. I'm fully aware that there are a lot of people that have done Wolverine claws on YouTube before. Punish Props made a really fantastic looking set of foam ones that's really easy to make, but there's also functional ones that people have made. And the Hacksmith design that he did years and years ago is one of the ones that people use the most. But Colin Furze also made another one, but there's a problem with each of these designs. The Hacksmiths, you hold onto a bar, they come out through your fingers, so when you slash, it's easy for the blades to bend up and down and potentially hurt your hand, but you can poke really well with them. Colin Furze's design has a rig on his arm that lets the blades extend and retract. It's an ingenious system that uses pneumatics. But the problem is that when it's puffed to the front, if you try to poke something, they'll just go back in. There's nothing that locks them there. So my design is going to address both of these issues, but they won't extend and retract. And they're going to be bone claws. Made out of metal. And not just any metal, I'm using 5160 spring steel. I've already got my templates and it took forever, so I'm going to show you what I did. And I basically put my arm down the way that I'd hold the claws and then tried to trace out a line that gave me an idea of how the curve should go. And then once I got this rough idea, I had my claws. But it wasn't that easy. I did one and I left a lot of material extra on it and I kept fitting it to my hand. And then I did another one and another one and another one and another one and another one. And this, actually this is the last one. And this is the good one. And then I used this to make a couple of other ones that fit on the other two spots on my hand. But this fits really well. See that? Look. Just like it grew out of my hand, like Wolverine. This wouldn't be a JAIRUS Evolve video if we didn't talk about the science behind Wolverine's claws. Do you know how long Wolverine's claws are actually supposed to be? I do, because I looked it up. And they're, according to the comics, supposed to be 17.8 inches long. I made some foam templates to give you an idea of the size that we're talking about. This is insane. It would never work. Obviously, comics don't always pay attention to reality, but in this case, it's a little ridiculous because it goes from my elbow to my fingertips, and I'm 5'10", and Wolverine is 5'3". There's absolutely no way, ever, that this could possibly work. But also, according to canon, Wolverine's claws could be 12 inches long, which is this long, which is still insane. If this size retracted back into his arm, there's absolutely no way that he could move his wrist. But at least he'd be able to move his elbow. 8-inch long claws are reasonable. This size fits reasonably well between my wrist and my elbow. I would still have range of motion in both of those joints if the claws were retracted. But if they were 8-inch claws and they stuck out the whole way, there would be nothing holding them and they would be super floppy. And I have an example for that. Cats have retractable claws, but they don't actually slide back into their skin. They fold back into a pocket of fur and skin so that you can't see them, but they're actually always out. A cat's claw is only 1/3 of the entire piece that allows it to go out and retract. The other 2/3 of it is bone, and there's a whole bunch of connective tissue and tendons and muscles that make this work. If the majority of this wasn't connected, cats' claws would be very unstable and it would be difficult for them to put much force into the claw. So anatomically, the same principle should apply to Wolverine. If we accept the magic that the claws can retract into his arm and burst through the skin, 8 inches is a reasonable size. But if he were to put them out, for them to be stable, they would probably have to be connected at least to the bones in his hands so that he would have stability and be able to put force into them, which would make his claws just over 5 inches long. I've never seen Wolverine with claws this short, but that is a reasonable size. But this length looks a lot cooler, and that's why I went with 8-inch claws. And since there's no way for me to build a support system inside of my hand, that's why I have the metal extend down my palm and onto my arm so that it's locked out. I won't be able to bend my wrist, but I'll have tons of support because of the leverage provided by the length of the tang on the claw so that I can use these and hopefully climb trees. If I still can't because the claw is too long, then maybe I'll shorten them to the 5 1/4 inch. The point is, according to the comic books, Wolverine's claws are totally unrealistic, and so is his healing factor, but we'll talk about that in the next video. This is a leaf spring from a very large truck. I found out that this is made from 5160 steel. I'm gonna turn this part into claws. I'm gonna do this whole project with just a couple tools so that you can do it too. Nope. Fancy stuff this time, not even gonna use the welder. Just a angle grinder, propane torch, a drill, some oil to quench it in, and an oven to temper it. All of which are readily available just like leaf springs that you can get at pretty much any junkyard or scrap thing or whatever, which means that you can do it at home. All right, let's make some claws. I don't know a whole lot about what I'm doing. I haven't ever tempered metal before, but I'm gonna give it a shot. It's a learning process. This is kind of the first time I've done a project where I'm gonna try to do it the right way with metal. But since I started doing these metal projects, I have learned a couple things, like these Silver Streak welder's pencils. They make it incredibly easy to see your lines whenever you're trying to cut stuff out. So much better than a Sharpie. See how visible that is? It's awesome. Initially, the plan was to do this with a drill and an angle grinder, and that was it. And maybe that would have worked if I could have found flat steel, because then I could have just taken my time cutting it out so that I didn't overheat the metal with the grinder when I was cutting it. But then I realized I'd have to bend it a little bit anyway. And since I couldn't find flat steel, I just decided to throw in the propane torch and the oil. So I'm gonna have to try to retemper this back into a spring steel-like form. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on how this works. But I'm sure we'll find out whenever I go to climb a tree and one of these claws breaks off or bends. But hey, I'll know better for next time. Oh shoot, I forgot to label them. See, already making mistakes. Back to grinding. All of them are cut out. I just gotta grind them down to shape. Cutting them out took a really long time. Grinding them down might take longer. That took about 1,000,000 times longer than I expected it to. Oh, it's hot in here. Now it's coming down to the fun parts. These things are still curved like they were when they were springs. So I need to heat them up and get them straight. And then I can worry about attaching them together and shaping them to fit when they're in my hand. That's surprisingly comfortable. Now these parts will have to come together and a bolt's gonna hold those together, but can't do any of that stuff until they are straight. And this is also gonna act as a test because I have a sneaking suspicion that this isn't gonna be able to put out enough heat to heat up the whole thing for me to be able to quench it in the open air. I might need to make some kind of containment system to insulate so that I can soak these things with heat before I quench them. But this definitely puts out enough that I can heat up areas of them to get them straightened out. This one is a pencil flame torch. It puts out a lot of heat, but not nearly as much as a swirl flame torch. You need one of these. This will heat the metal up. Dual torch action. It's getting there. little by little. It's pretty straight, at least straight enough to be turned into bones, because I'm gonna have to rebend it once it goes on my hand, but that looks pretty straight. The problem is that after doing this, now I know for sure there's no way I can get the whole thing hot to be able to quench it. This is supposed to be a super cheap project without barriers to entry, so if you leave me ideas in the comments on how to make a forge to get these hot so that I can actually quench them, remember that it can't be go buy a forge. It's being made out of rocks and sticks and mud and stuff. Anything that would keep this accessible to everyone. The leaf springs that I'm using for these are 5/16 thick. That's a huge amount of metal, which is why it takes so long to heat them up and it's so difficult to get the whole thing hot, because it's a lot of metal. But it's also a lot of overkill, which I want, so that when I try to use these to do stupid stuff like climb trees, I know they're not going to break. You saw how difficult it was for me to snap off that little tiny part that was still connected. And the overkill strength in these is very similar to the overkill security you get from NordVPN, which is why I highly encourage you to check out the link in the description, nordvpn.com/JAIRUS, so that you can protect yourself more than you need to when you're online, because you never know when something's going to happen. Nord's got over 4,000 different servers to help protect you. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications for the next video where I get these put together and complete the most functional Wolverine claws ever made. Wolverine claws! Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bonfire.com/JAIRUS. You know you want one.